Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello and welcome to The People's View. This is Representative Carl Seidel as your host today. Representative Peter Silver is not unable to make it. But as our guest today is Fred Kocher of the New Hampshire High Technology Council.
Nice to be here, Carl.
Thank you for coming. Can you tell us something about your organization?
Sure. The New Hampshire High Tech Council was started back in 1983, sort of as a tea and crumpet society, if you will, among the tech leaders. And you can imagine there wasn't a lot of tech in New Hampshire back in 1983 like there is now. So they used to get together and share war stories about their businesses and how they were doing. And eventually, over the years, it became an organization. And today, we have about 220 members that are technology-related businesses in one way or another. And everything from small mom and pop tech companies, software companies, all the way up to companies like Raytheon. So it's and everything in between. Wow. And we have all the different types of technologies, from biotech to communications to software to nanotechnology to IT, and we've got members in all of those sectors and more. And we have a terrific board of directors. And we have a bunch of programs that really you read about in the paper during the year. We just had our Entrepreneur of the Year award, and there were two companies that won. I'm going to refer to my notes here that I've got spread across your table, Carl. The co-founders of DYN in Manchester, it's Dynamic Network Services. They're an internet networking company worldwide. And then the Conway-based Echo Group, were the Entrepreneurs of the Year. And we do that every year. It's a competition, and we do our due diligence on each of the nominees, and then we select the nominees. There is right now an opportunity for a Product of the Year award winner, which happens this October. And if any companies are interested in a Product of the Year nomination, or somebody wants to nominate them, they can go to our website, which is www, I think it's up on your screen, right. NHHTC.org, and get the information. This is a statewide competitive process, and we have judges that pick the winner, and then the audience that night of the dinner has half the vote. So
really, that's a different way of doing it.
It's a different way of doing it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And
each company makes a presentation of their product, and then the winner is selected, and they get a lot of press. So you can go to that website and see more information.
And how many do you usually get as
we usually have around 300 people in the room at the Radisson in Manchester when we have this dinner. So it's a big affair. We have some new programs, and the one I think I would point to most particularly right now is our cluster programs that we're just launching. There are going to be 3 clusters, Carl. There's going to be a software IT cluster, there's going to be a defense cluster, and an advanced manufacturing cluster. And by cluster, I mean companies that are involved in those 3 areas. We are going to organize them over time together so they can get together, trade information, perhaps do business together, and grow. And economic development is one of our missions in New Hampshire, grow those clusters in the state. Advanced manufacturing right now is really the key to our growth. About 3,700 companies in the state.
Really, that many?
Advanced manufacturing includes the tech sector, and advanced manufacturing actually includes software. So out of all of that, you have about 3,700 companies, about 80,000 employees, and about $6.4 billion in payroll.
Do you tie in with people like angel investors and
We do.
also the universities and their?
We do. We are actually in the, that's very timely you asked that question, because we are organizing to the degree they want to be organized, because many times venture capitalists don't want to be known. They want to just emerge when there's an opportunity. But we're trying to organize venture capitalists and angel investors in New Hampshire, and to really inform them of the companies in our membership that are growing, that are credible, that have a market and are meeting the market and are eligible for that kind of investment. We're actually going to have a $500,000 has been raised by the council to give as an award for business plans of tech companies over the next 5 years. And we're going to, there's more information again on our website about that, but it's a new program also, and we're looking forward to helping some small companies really get going.
It's very critical in small companies to have the right connections like that,
Yep.
you know. And it's also critical for the investors. They need to know who's a sensible management, managed sensibly, I should say,
Yep.
and has a good technical product.
One of the interesting demographics of our group is that those of us who are older and who have been in charge of the High Tech Council in New Hampshire for the last 10, 15 years, we are older, and the younger leaders in our state in the tech industry are coming forth. Our chairman of our board is with Dynamic Network Services in Manchester, the networking company I mentioned. He's 33 years old. But you'd think he was 50, given his maturity and his common sense and his intelligence. So we're, the younger group is taking over, and that's good. It's good for New Hampshire.
Very good, yes. I think that's what the state needs. I mean, from the legislative standpoint, we're looking to grow our tax base, not grow the tax rate.
Right.
And this is what we need as new businesses to succeed. And I know it's very difficult. I've myself have started up a company down in Texas. It was a lot easier than it is in New Hampshire.
Well, you know.
So,
we're going to try to make it easier, and I know you are in the legislature with the Commission on Regulations that has been working for a year now to try to smooth out the regulations that you have to abide by and the process of complying.
it's interesting. I was amazed at the number of different regulations that really impede some of the progress of organizations, businesses.
And you know, the survey that was conducted, there were different surveys conducted, as you know, by a number of organizations, including ours, about regulations in New Hampshire. And the thing that came zooming back at us was the process. It's more than the regulations themselves, was the fact that they had to go through a very timely process over many months with lots of paperwork, sometimes duplicative paperwork, and that just caused some projects to be put off.
Yes. We're working on one right now, aren't we, Fred? We will find out on Thursday whether we're going to be running it during the summer, some of those committees. But there are a lot of them. And the part two, the second part of that is the implementation of some of these regulations. I don't think there's enough feedback in the system to the people who are trying to implement what the legislation has told them to implement. And sometimes the implementation is very poor. And the communication, some people take it into their own hands to implement it a certain way, which is very, very wrong.
Right. I mean, it's got to be one-stop shopping for businesses to go to, say at the Department of Resource and Economic Development, which would be a perfect place to put it. One-stop shopping where businesses can go to ask questions, get information, get answers, and bring problems that have to be resolved. And I know that there's one particular state senator, Senator Sanborn, I think, who had a bill this past session that would create one.
Right. I think they want to look at that. I think they set up some kind of a committee to look at it.
Yes, they did.
And so hopefully that'll take fruit and come to fruition next time. But one of the problems that I see, well, I don't know if you heard about what happened with the Department of Justice when they set up their call center up there in Concord?
No, I haven't.
Okay, one of the things that the legislature did was to say that if you want your full budget, we want you to set up a call center to centralize all the people who have to call in about the different courts, et cetera. And they said, well, we don't know how we're going to do that. Well, anyway, the bait was enough for get them to try it. They implemented it, and it was under budget, done in a quicker time than they had said. And now they're finding out a lot of these problems because everything is centralized, so the people who answer the questions now understand the problems that their voters are having with their regulations or the courts or whatever, and they're ready to solve them.
It's called a responsive government.
How about that?
Right.
Well, that's what we want. Yeah. And if they can use that example, I mean, I went there to their opening day when they had it out, and not the opening time that they let people come in and see how it ran. And it was very well organized, and the people there were grateful that they were there.
Yes.
They all communicated amongst one another. There's about 12 people answering phones, and there were specialists there for certain areas. But they focused on some of the problems, and they solved them by themselves.
And they'll go from calls to tweets maybe next.
We'll see.
We'll see. Right.
But I'm glad to hear some of these things that you're involved in. The priority, is there any priority that, or are you trying to juggle 4 or 5 balls at the same time?
Yeah, our priorities at the High Tech Council are economic development, education, and of course our members' best interests. Those are our priorities. Economic development, I've talked a little bit about some of the things we're doing. On education front, we are requiring every member of our board to get involved in some way in education. We have an education committee, and one of the things that I'm working on personally is to create a group of business leaders in the state who will constitute sort of a round table, if you will, on education. So we can take a look at some initiatives that might improve education at the secondary and post-secondary levels in the state. Not a big agenda, but just a few things that will really make a difference, and get some top business leaders in the state of New Hampshire to get behind some of those initiatives so we can make sure that we have the best education system in New England and in the country. We have a good system now. We have some wonderful schools and colleges, but times are changing, and we need to have an education system that is more responsive to the times in which we live. And of course, coming out of the tech sector as I do, that's what I think of in particular.
Well, have you done anything with specifically with the community colleges?
Yes, we've talked to the Chancellor Ross Cattell, who just took over as the Chancellor. He was at one of our board meetings recently, and we were talking about a collaboration between the Tech Council and some of our companies and the community colleges. The community colleges, as you probably know, Carl, are literally brimming with students because many of them can't afford a 4-year college now.
Right.
So the community college is a good financial deal for them and their families. So they are becoming, the community college system, I think, is going to be the key funnel of the educated workforce that we need in New Hampshire, because those students tend to stay in New Hampshire. Students that are going to 4-year colleges tend to leave the state for a while before they come back to raise their families. That's a demographic that the Carsey Institute at UNH has discovered. But the community college students tend to stick around. And some of the coursework, in particular in manufacturing at the community college level, is something that this Chancellor Cattell is focusing on. I think it's going to be just critical to our manufacturing workforce needs.
I think so too, and our committee, I'm on the Public Works Committee, and we handled the capital budget. And we were very much impressed with the way the community college presented their program last year. In fact, we gave them everything they asked for, which we rarely do.
Yes, we were generous compared to the university system.
That's right. Well, there was other reasons for the university.
I understand that, yeah.
But we hope that the university sees some of the things that they did, and they could do it on the university level too, by maybe expanding certain educational techniques that they use.
Yeah. As you know, Carl, if you go to the community college for 2 years, you can transfer those credits automatically over to a 4-year college in the university system of New Hampshire. So there is a real connection there, and that's good. That's positive.
I agree.
Some of these students that are having to go to community college because they can't afford a 4-year college will probably, by the time this economy comes back and hopefully their parents have jobs and they've raised some money themselves by working, they can afford those last 2 years at Plymouth State, Keene State, University of New Hampshire.
It's a little bit easier to go to community college for those first 2 years too, and to take courses at night while you're doing a daytime job.
Right.
And that's something that I think has to be appreciated. But what amazed me is some of the high-tech things that they got involved in, high-tech welding techniques, and there was, I can't remember the other one.
Which is all computerized now.
Yeah,
high-tech welding. Manufacturing, advanced manufacturing is going to be the new priority for the chancellor as he takes hold of the community college system this coming year. And they just got a federal grant to help fund the establishment of an advanced manufacturing curriculum. So that's something to watch.
Yeah, well, that'll be good, and we will be watching that. And I hope they come with, if we get into the same cycle again, capital improvements next year, because I think that's going to bring New Hampshire up to the higher economic level.
Yeah, I think it's the key to our growth. It's going to drive the New Hampshire economy.
What about the University of New Hampshire's, what do they call it, the initiative that they have there for
the Green
incubator?
Launching Pad?
Yeah.
The Green Launching Pad. Green Launching Pad was funded, again, by federal money. And it's a program whereby they will invest in helping those groups of people who have an idea for a company that is involved in some kind of job product or technology that is green, quote unquote, and they will invest in not only some money, early money, but also give them some support from the professors at the University of New Hampshire early on to see if these companies can take off. Give them some advice on operations and marketing and so forth. And literally, there have been a few companies that have taken off, and there's some others in the pipeline, but the money's going to run out. So the question is this sustainable?
Yeah, well, that's where you get your angel investors in.
That's right.
And is it sort of modeled after the MIT Enterprise Forum? I don't know if you've familiar.
It's somewhat, but it's got its own character. It's got its own personality and its own face. I think it's fairly unique. It was developed by some folks at the University of New Hampshire, including the current chancellor of the, of the community college system, Ross Cattell, who used to be a professor at the Whittemore School of Business and Economics. He was part of the creation of that.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked that is I worked for DuPont at one time, and DuPont had a lot of connections with MIT. And not only did MIT encourage the newer enterprises, they worked with the ones that were established in certain technology. And they brought their people in. Not only did it helped initiate these contacts so that the company and probably other companies that were with it in a process would benefit by the skills and technology that the college had
The tough thing right now, as you know, Carl, is that there's a lot of money on the sidelines. A lot of investors are not investing, especially in startups where there's no track record and no market established, high risk, and this economy is still wavering. And
they're not ready for high risk.
No, there are a few that are doing it, but most are not. And until we get that money off the sidelines, we're going to bump along. But the money's there.
Yeah.
And what's going to unlock it? That's the
Well, I think your group there and other people like you who provide an outside expertise and a different viewpoint maybe on some of these things, a different knowledge base, help the people with the money.
Yeah. There's some companies, Carl, in this state that really are the up-and-coming technologies in New Hampshire. And one of them is building right in the Nashua Merrimack area. It's Nanocomp Technologies, coming out of Concord.
Right.
Small company that came up with a product called nanotubes. And nanotubes are used in everything from the skins of aircraft to military uniforms to golf balls. And this is a material that has never existed before, made by manipulating atoms and molecules into new materials. I went through the company in Concord. They're building a huge facility down here in the greater Nashville area right now. In fact, they're in it. And they have contracts with the military and other outfits, and NASA, I believe, also. Anyhow, the owner showed me this piece of material he had created out of nanotubes, like a fuzzy scarf that you put around your neck in the wintertime. Fuzzy, nice and soft, but 100 times the tensile strength of steel. That is what nanotubes are all about. And this is going to be a very, very big company one of these days in New Hampshire. It's something to watch. Also, robotics is up and coming, and aerospace with the movement of Albany International out of Albany, New York, over to Rochester, New Hampshire, with up to 500 jobs in the next couple of years. And they make the next generation of some of the structural pieces of the next generation of jet aircraft.
What, different materials, different composites?
Different materials, composites, exactly. Yeah, and as a former DuPont man, you would appreciate that.
Yeah, well, they do quite a bit on that.
Right.
We got involved with a number of different things. DuPont is a big company, and they have a lot of different interesting things that they do. And there's a company that supports education. They really, I don't know if you've ever heard of some of their programs, but they have scholarships for people who go to.
I have heard of that, yeah.
And they bring teachers, high school teachers, down to their experimental station in Wilmington for a 2-week period during the summer to teach them the new technology that they have.
That's critical.
That's right. I mean, that's where you got to get the people interested in high school, I think.
Yeah, you do. There's a program called New Hampshire the State Scholars Program. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No, I haven't.
But it is, it's in Concord. And they are right now in 58 high schools in New Hampshire and headed for 80, which are the total number of high schools, the last count I knew. This program goes into the school, works with the administration, the teachers, and the students to make their curriculum a little bit more rigorous and a little bit more relevant so that when they go to college, they don't have to take as many remedial courses or maybe no remedial courses before they start their regular college curriculum. That's a real problem. So, and it also brings the business community into the schools to try to mentor these students that college is important.
That's good.
And this is called the State Scholars Program. Every, once a year, they have all the students that were involved in that program and all the high schools come together at the State House Plaza, and they have a big award ceremony where they hand out these medallions to those students who have completed the program over a period of a year. It's quite something, and it's one of the most, I think, promising programs in the state to develop young people in high school.
Well, that's what's necessary. When I was with DuPont, again, I worked down in Billerica, Massachusetts, and they had an outreach program that we had with the high schools. And, of course, we were able to send several of the high school science teachers down to the Wilmington station. Yeah. But we also hosted a day when the people who were interested in the science high school could come over and see the type of equipment that was being used, both in biological research and areas handling radioactive materials.
Yeah, I would encourage companies in New Hampshire to do that. Yeah. I think that is, there are a few companies I'm aware of that bring students and the teachers in to see what they do and allow students actually on their when they have vacation from school to come in and sort of be a somewhat of an intern, if you will, for a while, for a week or two.
We did that too.
And it makes a huge difference in pushing the buttons of young people in their interests. And suddenly you'll see them go back to school and start to take some of their courses a little bit more seriously.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think I did that with my daughter, too, when she didn't like college.
Well, your daughter's done very well.
No, not that daughter.
Oh, not
another daughter.
Another daughter.
I have 3 daughters.
Oh, you've done 3 daughters. Okay. Well, I heard about the one that has done well in Washington.
Oh, yes. Yeah, she's done very well. We're very proud of her. But just getting people, it's a real nice feeling to see these people pick up an interest in something, well, I guess, that I went through. Yeah. And it was just because somebody had me do something that perked my interest up.
Right, right. The more exposure you get to ideas and just to see things happen
Right.
out in the real world. There is a new program that's being tested by the New Hampshire Department of Education, which I think is terrific. It's a program where they take the students out of a school, out of a particular class, and for a week, and they'll take them out to some off-site location with the teacher, and then they'll bring in an expert in a topic that they're going to focus on, let's say earthquakes. And they're going to study earthquakes and the faults and how they move and what the implications are and so forth. They'll bring a geologist from the university, or if you're near a company that has an expert in that area, and they'll hold all together. They'll spend a week focusing on this, and what happens is the students, this is hands-on, and the students get excited about what they're learning, and you can sort of look through the group and you can see which ones have really become excited. Then when they go back to their school, they can take a course or two that extends what they have just experienced in that week off. It's called Learning Studio. That's the name. It's well ensconced in Maryland. The state of Maryland uses it. Okay. We're just trying it here.
Okay, I was going to ask how it was being received here.
So far, so good.
So the administration of the schools think highly.
The Commissioner of Education, Virginia Berry, is a big supporter of this, and it's just in a few schools right now, but it's something that they're looking at to expand. It has worked in Maryland very well, and so we're hoping it's going to learn. It's a chance to get the students exposed, again, to something hands-on, and a laser-like focus on a particular topic. It can be anything.
You see how the robotics competition is responded. Isn't that a good way?
Robotics,
I mean, if we can produce a few more Dean Kamens, I think would be good.
Dean wants that program in every high school in New Hampshire. That's his goal.
I don't blame him. I mean, I have a nephew who's, I guess, 11 years old, was competing in that.
Yeah, it's great to see those kids. I had some of them on in my interview segment at Channel 9, New Hampshire's Business, on Sunday morning, and one was 12 years old, and she was a whiz at explaining what they were doing. I didn't know what they were doing, and she explained it to me, which was terrific. I was very impressed.
I was impressed at how much some of those kids are picking up, not just computer stuff, but the electronics and all the mechanical parts of that.
And teamwork.
Yeah, that's good. Because I don't think they teach that in high school. No.
Not yet.
No, they have.
Maybe some do. I don't know. But I think that ought to be.
I imagine somebody's there doing that. You're right. I mean, it's more than just having a lab partner or something like that. But it's working as a group and solving problems as a group. I mean, I think companies have learned that, and those are the companies that are really excelling. Yep. Because they're getting there faster with better products.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have an issue in New Hampshire in the tech sector, and I think in business in general, about getting enough graduates from our universities and colleges that have become educated in the sciences, technology, engineering, math. There's a shortage, and a lot of companies are having to go overseas and through H-1B visas from the State Department to bring in the talent they need, which shouldn't be that way. I mean, I know we're a global economy, but on the other hand, we ought to be producing our own workforce, and we're not producing enough. So that's a challenge we face, and I know that the universities and colleges in New Hampshire are aware of it. I think they are retooling to deal with it, and I think we'll see the product in a few years.
You got to get it down to the high schools too.
But you got to start in the grade schools and high schools.
Grade schools and high schools.
Yep.
Yeah.
No question.
And, we're looking to see what we can support there in the legislature too, because some of these things are coming before us.
And as you know, and as the viewers probably know, the cut of the university system, not this session, but the last session, of about half their appropriation from the state was tough for them to swallow when they're trying to meet the need. Hopefully.
Well, I think we really have to get down to competition in the schools. And unfortunately, we'll be talking about that with this scholarship approach.
Yes.
But I think we do have to do that because the schools are getting too, I don't know what the right word is, but they're circling the wagons. They're protecting what they're doing, and they're not ready for change in some of the things that I've seen.
Yeah, I think, well, of course, it depends on which college you're talking about or which university, but I think some of them are changing.
Good.
And they're getting more efficient. They know what the marketplace is demanding. They're now trying to restructure so that they're going to meet that demand. I wish more were doing that, but some are. And I think the university system in New Hampshire is starting to do that. And I think we'll see the results of that in the next few years.
Do you work with Dartmouth too at all?
I personally have not. Well, I must say, wait, I changed that. I have actually spoken to, they have a curriculum at Dartmouth between the Thayer School of Engineering and the Tuck School of Business, where they have joint courses. And I have actually spoken to some of those classes about all things politics. I don't, it's part of the curriculum.
Yeah, that's not bad. No, but that's another aspect they have to know.
But I know Dartmouth and UNH have some joint efforts between them. And I don't know where they stand in terms of their effectiveness.
I thought I read something recently where Dartmouth was expanding into some application type of work. I don't recall exactly what it was, but it looked to me like it was encouraging new types of business up in that area.
Yeah, well, of course, a lot of the CEOs and presidents of major companies in this country got their education at Dartmouth, and that's why they're such a club. And they came out of the Thayer School and the Tuck School, and you can go across the country and you can identify a lot of CEOs that came out of those programs. So it's a great university.
I'm finding out more about that. I was down with my daughter, whose boyfriend is from Dartmouth, so I heard a little bit about Dartmouth. But Fred, I think we've gone through quite a lot today here. I think I'm going to ask you to come back sometime in the future when we talk about some other things.
I'd be glad to.
Because we have a lot to understand how we can, the legislature needs to understand how it can be of assistance, the right kind of assistance. We just don't want to throw money at things. And that's one of the things that has to be defined, because we have to learn what's best too.
Well, you balanced the budget this session.
That's right.
Which was a great achievement. You know, some may quibble with how you did it, but you did it, and that's of benefit to the state.
Well, as I said at the beginning, what we want to do is grow the tax base, not the rate, and then we'll be able to afford a lot more stuff.
Yeah, and hopefully the economy will get better. Basically, it's slowing down a little bit now, but hopefully. We're not going to go back in the other direction.
Let's hope that everything works out. But thank you again for the time.
Thank you, Carl. Nice to be here with you.
And thank you, audience, for listening. This is sponsored again by the Nashua Republican City Committee, and we meet every second Thursday in the Crown Plaza. Please come. We have start at 6:30. Look at our website, NashuaGOP.org. And thank you very much for tuning in. Hello, this is Representative Carl Seidel, bringing you another episode of People's View. This is sponsored by the Nashua City Committee, Nashua Republican City Committee, and tonight we have Representative Dennis Lamare, the candidate for Congress in District 2. Dennis, welcome aboard.
Hi, Carl.
I'd like to understand why you're running as a candidate against an incumbent.
Well, when I look at what's going on down in Washington with the stalemate and the votes that are going down there, I'm just too frustrated with the incumbent. I'm taking the gloves off on this conversation here, that he's voting to raise the debt ceiling. He's voting our freedoms away, and I just can't stand by and let that happen. If I did, then I would agree with what he's doing, and I don't.
So those are the main things that you have on his voting record that you disagree with?
Well, if you look at, he's been voted into office 6 times, and he's voted 5 times to raise the debt ceiling. And that is a pattern of habit. That means that he is a person that is helping this country go into financial bankruptcy, and we can't afford to have that happen again. That's on the financial part of it. The other part is that he's voting away our freedoms and our rights. He's depriving us of our liberties, and he has no right to do that. He voted for the Patriot Act, which is allowing the federal agents to write their own search warrants without going before a judge with probable cause to enter our homes and look for probable cause. That's not right. He voted for the Defense Appropriation Act, which allows the federal government to, and even the president, to suspect a person of being a terrorist or anything that they want, haul them away and detain them indefinitely. That's against the Fifth Amendment rights. And he also voted for what we call H.R. 347, which I call the Anti-Protest Act, which is that if there's a Secret Service agent in the area of a person that they're protecting, that Secret Service agent can arrest people for speaking out loudly or demonstrating against a person. So that's depriving us of our First Amendment right for free speech,
definitely.
to gather, and to have redress. So he's voted for those things, and that's why I'm running against him, to have somebody down in Congress that understands the Constitution, that understands financial security, that will vote in the favor of America.
So you'll, if elected, vote against all those things?
Sure.
And what would you, let's just take the debt ceiling.
Sure.
How would you solve our problem of spending too much money, and therefore, you know, they claim that you have to raise the debt ceiling or you ruin our credit rating?
Well, that's a fallacy, because there are ways to always take things off the table for spending that will always keep us below the ceiling.
Yeah.
It's like a credit card. You know, we have so much that we can spend. That's our limit. We can't always go to the credit card company and say, hey, you know, I need a little bit more money to spend. So we got to pay off some of our debt. We got to get rid of some of the wasteful spending, and they always say that, but there's no political will down in Washington to do that. So if we stopped and pulled out of Afghanistan, we would save $10 billion a month. If we get rid of some of the agencies that are detrimental to our society, such as Department of Education, education should be on the state and the local level, not on the federal level. Let's take the Department of Energy. The only thing that the Department of Energy should regulate would be possibly the nuclear power, but then again, that can be shifted over to the Department of Defense. So if we got rid of some of the departments and agencies that are causing us a lot of the problems, and that should be a totally state issue, then we can keep our costs down, and then we don't have to keep trying to raise that level.
Now, the Department of Energy hasn't done very much about what they were put together.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is all this is
regulate.
building a bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is since 1976, when President Carter got into office, agency upon agency upon agency have been added onto the cabinet level, such as energy, education, and the EPA. Actually, EPA was later. It was in the 1990s, and that was one of the agencies that Congressman Bass voted to make a cabinet, a full cabinet level position. So he's voting to increase government, the size of government, and not decrease it.
So that's another one of basically you're for smaller government.
Of course.
More responsible government.
I'm looking at what the federal government is actually there for, what the Constitution allows it for. It's Article 1, Section 8. It's 17 or 18, I don't know the exact number, but that is all the powers of Congress.
Right.
It's not to spread the federal government. The government's supposed to protect us, and what it's doing right now is invading our lives more than ever before. It's limiting our liberties, and that's not what it's there for.
And that's one of the things you're going to be facing with the issue of Obamacare, or the...
Well, let's hope that the Supreme Court takes care of it, but
Yeah.
it may not take care of all of it, but what it does not take care of, let's go ahead in Congress and get the rest of it off the book, so it doesn't...
But again, you're saying that that's not a real responsibility by way of the Constitution for the federal government.
Exactly. They can't
And
direct us and tell us that we have to buy a certain product. But that, I believe, is only the facade of what it's all about. It's building a subculture, a sub-government, and it's Nancy Pelosi's words of saying we don't know what's going to be in until we pass it. And that's kind of like mind-boggling. Like, why would a person vote for that if they don't know what it's going to be?
Right.
And it's just, again, something that's out there that is infringing on our rights. It's also affecting business, because the businesses don't know what their costs are going to be. They're being faced with higher insurance costs, and they're going to say to the employees, we're not going to pay for your care anymore. You'll have to do it yourself, or go with the government, and that's what the government's trying to do, is force people off of the insurance, the private insurance,
That's
and
right.
onto a public insurance, and I don't stand for that.
How do you think that folds into Medicare, Medicaid?
Medicare and Medicaid is generally for the elderly.
Right.
It does happen for people that are below the age of
Yeah.
65 for certain reasons, financial eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want it to be institutionalized like Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want the federal government to go from a safety net for the people that really need it to become a hammock for the people that don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want the federal government to institutionalize something that we're going to be in debt for forever.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that the federal government has tried to do, they have failed at. Because right now, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, they're all becoming insolvent. Amtrak is bankrupt, the post office is bankrupt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So everything that the federal government tries to do and improve on, they always make it worse, and we're always footing the bill for it.
And a lot more people in there, a lot more other
Bureaucracy,
expenses with
sure.
Pensions and stuff, which is
Exactly.
underfunded.
Right.
How do you think that Congress should handle that, the pension for all the employees, all the federal employees?
I think that the federal government should not be in the business of pensions, even for their employees. The employees should self-fund their retirements and not be supported by the federal government. If they want to put money away themselves and invest it in and do what they want to do, or even participate, God forbid, in Social Security, you know, we don't want that to happen. But I'm just saying that nobody should be entitled to anything from the federal government. There are no entitlements in life, because we are given the opportunity to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The opportunity is there for everybody, and it's not for the federal government to stand in and say, hey, we're going to help you out and make your life a little bit easier. That's not the way that we're set up to be.
Sometimes they make it a little bit too easy.
Well, but there are always strings attached to it.
I understand that, and not only for the people, the employees, but as a member of Congress, you'd be an employee.
I would.
And you have all those benefits that Congress gets on the pension, too.
I would, but I would always vote against the increases, even though they may pass, but I would always vote against them, because that's not why I'm there. I'm not there to benefit any way of being a public service, more so than me as a private citizen. So I would always vote against these items that are for a pension, pay increases, whatever they may be. I would not support those increases or even have them on the books.
Are you going to try to get some of the other congressmen to help out, see your point of view a little bit? I mean,
Well, I'm sure that there are a lot of them that are in that,
Yeah.
that viewpoint, but there's no political will to change it.
No,
Because
not
they're
at all.
benefiting from it, and why shoot the cow?
Well, I think you get other people mad who just are in it for, well, I shouldn't say just for the pension, but because they want to keep that. They'll fight
course,
for it.
of
They'll
course.
fight it real hard. Well, what do you think we're going to do in this coming election? How do you think you're going to fight for the primary? That's September 11th.
It is.
And you have a lot of work to do to get your name out there.
I do. And you're right. There's roughly 8 or 9 weeks left in the
Right.
primary season. That's the whole summer. I'm going to be out there aggressively meeting people. I'm going to run a very lean campaign, which means that I'm going to keep the cost down, because if I tell people that I'm going down to Washington to cut out spending, wasteful spending, I'm going to do it in my own campaign. And I'm going to make sure that people are going to see that I'm going to run a very cost-effective,
campaign,
a cost-effective one, so that I'm not going to overspend. Yes, I do need to get my name out there. I will be on TV. I will be in the papers. I will be wherever large numbers of people are, so that I can get myself out there and people can hear my message that I'm for less taxes, less spending, less government, and I am for the people.
Have you been able to get enough volunteers to help you? I mean, you can't do all this yourself.
No, I can't do it myself. I have a very broad range of volunteers. I have groups that are participating with me. I have Tea Party groups. I have some other groups that are with me that are grassroots. And I do have a certain percentage following from the members of the Republican Party.
Percentage-wise, in New Hampshire, I think we have more grassroots than any other state.
Well, that's good. That's good, because
good.
that's what I'm trying to tap into,
Yeah.
and I believe that the majority of the grassroots will be with me.
And the other thing, maybe you can explain for our audience, You're actually a resident of District 1, but running for a seat in District 2.
That's correct.
And if you could just go through the reasons and why it's legal.
Okay. I've always been a resident of New Hampshire. I was born in Newport, New Hampshire, which is right in the middle of District 2.
Right.
And I was born there, raised there, and I still have a family there. But that's the byproduct of it. The reason that I am running is because the Constitution of the United States and the state laws of New Hampshire allow me to do that. The Constitution states that a person only has to be 25 years of age and a resident of the state that they want to represent. The state law says that I don't have to live in the district that I'm trying to represent because I'm going to represent the whole state of New Hampshire. So that is a waiver in effect. But it's not an issue for me because I'm following the laws and the rules of the state and for the country. And I believe that the ones that may raise an issue are the ones that are supporting a different candidate.
That's probably true. Do you know any other people who have run in other states under the same situation?
Well, not in other states, but there have been people that have run in the same situation in the 80s and then the 90s.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, it's interesting, and it's going to be difficult. And
well, it's not difficult because I would run the same campaign in District 1 as in District 2. Yeah. So it's not necessarily any more difficult. It's just that I have to get my message out there that the incumbent is a tax and spender. He's a big government person. He's not for the people. And that's the message that I'm going to portray. And that doesn't make it difficult at all because I don't find it hard to defend the Constitution because it has given me everything that I have. And for me to stand up and defend it is my privilege.
Dennis, what do you do to, I guess, earn your paycheck? Or have you had any other political experience?
I ran for the Senate 2 years ago, and I was unsuccessful. That was the same race that Kelly Aid I had won. And I have no other political experience besides running for that office. But let me just say one thing about experience. I may not have the political experience, but I do have common sense experience. And if we look at what experience down in Washington gets us, again, Congressman Bass has been elected 6 times. He's voted 5 times for the debt increase. He's voted against our rights. He wanted to make larger government by the EPA being a cabinet level. That's not the kind of experience in any realm that the people of New Hampshire want. So even though I may not have the experience, I have the experience of life, living, freedom fighter, liberty-loving person, and that is enough for me to say, hey, I'm qualified.
Well, some of that's just the best experience you can have.
It is.
In
it
life
is. It is.
So what profession have you been in?
I've done a lot of different things. You know, when I was younger, I worked in a paper mill. I worked in a glass factory. I worked as a restaurant manager. I worked as working along the power lines, cleaning off the tree limbs. I worked as a financial advisor or a stockbroker for a large brokerage firm. I've worked 8 years for an insurance company for long-term care, and I also worked the last 2 years as an independent insurance agent selling life insurance.
Well, that's a varied experience. You've met people and done different things. That gives you a lot of background.
Right, and I've always tried to better myself for my family, and you know, you look for things and the opportunities, as I mentioned before. The country gives you the opportunity, you just have to reach out and grab it.
So you decided this time that it's Charlie Bass you're going after, not the Senate seat, you're going after the
Well, the Senate's not open until 2014.
Yeah, right.
But yes, this is an opportunity that I think is a good opportunity. It's every 2 years, but I'm just saying that I feel that I can do a better job than Congressman Bass to represent the people of New Hampshire, to keep, again, the costs down and keep our liberties intact. I think it's always easier. He talks about doing, you know, the tough votes, the tough choices down there, and all those choices are more spending, more taxes, more government. The tough choice down there is to say, I'm going to protect and defend the Constitution. I'm going to just spend as little money as I can. I'll vote no as much as I can. That's the tough choice.
That is.
It is. And actually, the easy choice is to say the Constitution is the law of the land, and that's what I'm going to follow. And that's what will make my job easy, because I'm going to have it on my desk, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to promise the people of New Hampshire this. I'll read the bills before you vote on it. I'm going to make sure that it's in the best interest of America, and I'm going to make sure that we can afford it.
Well, Dennis, thank you very much for your time. I think you have a good program going there. Good luck in everything that happens in the primary.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, and if you win the primary, we'll have you back.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, audience, for listening in. This is the People's View. Representative Peter Silver wasn't able to join us today, but he'll be here on the coming show. And I ask you to tune in the week after the 4th of July, and we'll be having the Speaker of the House and the Senate President talking about the veto day and what finished up the the end of this session. So thank you very much for tuning in. And if you want to find out more about the Nashua City Republican Club, go to NashuaGOP.org. And you'll see our programs on there. We meet the second Thursday of every month. Thank you very much.